Hi everybody. This is a different thing we're doing for for the channel. So I wanted to do for the longest time a little bit of a retrospective on Brazilian video game magazines. So what people don't usually know is that Brazil actually had a pretty vibrant scene of gaming magazines actually. And this one we're looking at is the second issue of Ação Games, which is the first one that I had, actually. I have basically, I think, the first 50 issues or something, but I got this one first. I then got the first issue for some reason. I remember it was actually also on sale because they released really close to each other, I guess, in time. I don't remember how the period was like between how long the time was between one of the other issues, but well, yeah. So this magazine, there's a bunch of story for this. Is actually a documentary, well, in Portuguese, I guess, about this particular magazine. Because Ação was actually a bigger brand of Editorial Azul, and it was like focused on like sports and like rock climbing and surf and whatever. And this was kind of like their offshoot into video games. And it turns out this was a pretty good idea because video games were taking off. This was in the early 90s. I'm pretty sure this is 92 or 91, something like that. No, I'm lying. This is actually 90 because it actually shows up like Alex Kidd and all these other games. Sonic has not come out yet. This is actually like earlier than that. So yeah. So what am I looking at? This is, like I said, this is the front cover of the magazine, and you can see there the Double Dragon, like Billy is right there, and Yonoid, and a bunch of other stuff. Wow, yeah, I guess I should enable the mouse for this kind of thing. Huh. Well, either way. So going on, so there's a bunch of advertising in this, which is interesting. So the advertising in this magazine is basically for like local stores, and local stores, by that I mean like in São Paulo. I'm pretty sure it's not only in São Paulo, because like there's a bunch of stores. Yeah, for example, this one has a bunch of stores in different parts. I think they're all in São Paulo. Actually, I'm not sure. But here you can see also like the logos and things: Super Famicom, Mega Drive, like Tectoy, and PC Engine, right? These are not like, well, they're not like American names, right? I mean, Nintendo NES. Like, remember that the NES didn't actually have a proper official support in Brazil, right? It didn't actually. It got one, but I think Playtronic sponsored it or had a like Brazilian part of it. When the Super Nintendo shows up years later. So at this point, there is no official Nintendo. It's going to be important for something else later, right? Pro Games. I actually went to this store. It was in São Paulo, I remember. I didn't live close by, but I remember being there. Anyway, so this is the index. And you can see Last Battle there, also known as Hokuto no Ken, right? The actual original Japanese version. And yeah, there's a bunch of Portuguese in this. But, well, this was published around July, so it's talking about basically the summer, I guess the winter vacation, because it's Brazil, right? So it's Southern Hemisphere. And basically they compiled special stuff, whatever, because of that. Like there were like some holidays and so on. So they wanted to give people something to do, I suppose. So yeah, and as you can see, Mega Drive, Master System, these are like the most important things. They show up always in the first place. So Brazil was one of those countries where the Master System was a huge sales success, basically. I had one. I still have one, actually. And, well, Mega Drive, of course, is Genesis, as you know them in the US. Also a pretty huge sales success in Brazil, of course, right? But that doesn't mean that people didn't play Nintendo. On the contrary, actually, people did play Nintendo, a bunch of it. It just wasn't the same thing as you would imagine if you were from the US, right? So anyway, oh yeah, I also see there in the index, there's like MSX, right? Number 41, right? right besides the ratings, with that little hand. I'm nostalgic for this, honestly, the little hand thingy. So anyway, yeah, they didn't use numbers, they used that little hand icon. Actually pretty cool. So, yeah, well, there's usually you have this, people send letters and, questions about, arcades and so on. Somebody about, what's this guy? What the fuck is this kind of question? All right, yeah, this guy is asking about the names of why is it called like Genesis in the US, not Mega Drive, right? Yeah, okay, this is a good question. Look at this one. The one in the middle, it says É tudo Nintendo, né? It says the cartridges for Bit System are compatible with Phantom System. So that's nonsense talk, right? Unless you know that Bit System and Phantom System are two Nintendo clones consoles, which were basically in Nintendo 8 bits. They were NESs, right? But they're kind of weirdly proprietary in the Brazilian market, so that you can't actually physically fit the cartridge there. But the answer is correct. It says that, well, they have the same number of pins, which is 72, right? So basically, you can just strip the plastic bit off and shove the PCB in the system, and it would work anyway, because it's the same thing, right? Well, you already have a good indication of what this kind of thing looks like. There's a bunch of other advertisements. Somebody's asking if you put the Master System card in your Mega Drive, does it look better? That's great. It would be cool if it did that. Like if you had like Ford's compatibility like that, you put the old card in the new console and it looks better. We still don't have that right now, and that's something that should happen at some point in the future, maybe. Who knows? So Shots was like this section where they had, I suppose, announcements or things about news, right? There's The Simpsons there. Remember, The Simpsons was like huge in Brazil at this point. I remember that. I remember watching it a lot, and remember this being everywhere, basically. Because remember, this is like right at the end of the 80s. This is 90, right? At least 90. It has to be 90 because, yeah, Sonic's not out yet. Mega Drive exists, so it launched. So it's not 89, it's 90, right? Actually, yeah, there you go, 90. The best, like, rankings of that's Ninja Turtles movie reference there. Because, of course, yeah, basically, like, what's the best arcade games of 1990. So there's, like, TMT arcade game, Air Inferno, Volkstrag, F-15, Strike Eagle, Mercs, etc. Kind of interesting. Something about Tetris and nude women. The hell? Oh, anyway, so yeah, so these are kind of like mixed news of things. There's an announcement for a little, I don't know what it's basically a small video game fair, right? Which, remember, this is 90, right? This is 1990 in Brazil. So anything like video games in Brazil was a huge thing, right? It was actually a big thing. And so this magazine, it was one of maybe 5 or 6 that existed at one point in time. I think around 92 or 93, you had like a boom of magazines. And some of them survived, especially like Spring Game Power and some games. Both of them were pretty big. But there were others as well. Some of them merged, some of them didn't exist anymore. There were some for like PC games only, and so on. And here's a commercial for one of those Nintendo clones. So Dynavision 3 is actually a Nintendo clone. It's not gonna say it in the thing, right? But it is. This is what it is. And this is the third version of it. So imagine a company making 3 generations of Nintendo clone hardware. So this is what it is, right? Maybe you'll see more pictures of something like that later. So this is the part we have like actually reviews of games. And so this is This is clearly the Ghostbusters Genesis game, which is pretty okay. They didn't like the graphics as much, apparently. And so you'll see Tectoy being featured a lot, especially if you read on the bottom there. Basically, on the little hands, the Lançamento is like the publisher. So Tectoy is basically the official distributor or publisher for Sega products in Brazil, or it was at least. And they handled everything, like the merchandising and all the console stuff. So clearly, everything that's from like Sega got an official release. We had pirated games, of course, but we didn't have, clone consoles of the Genesis or the Master System. We actually had the original ones, or at the very least the ones made in Brazil, or And actually, I have like a Japanese Mega Drive actually, because that's what they imported at the beginning. So there's Yonoid, which is kind of crap. It does actually give you the little story behind it. Like, this is the little, like, a mascot for Domino's Pizza. It doesn't tell you that this is actually rebranding of a Japanese game as we know now, but whatever, right? It's made by Capcom, it says. So, and it also says in Padrão is basically like the type of system it's made for, and it says Nintendo American, like American Nintendo. That's the NES for Americans, right? And because we also had a lot of games which were imported, and they were Japanese games only. So you would have, and of course the difference, is that, as you would know, I guess, if you were a nerd like I am, that of course the pin count is different between the American Nintendo and the Japanese Nintendo. You need an adapter for that, which I also had, and I think everybody did. Well, no. I'm lying, aren't I? The pin count I think is different, but I think the main problem was actually getting the cartridge in the American Nintendo type thing. But whatever, there was an adapter, I know. So this is why it's called this way. But of course, this game would have been distributed through one of those clone console companies, branded by them. So maybe we'll see that later, but it's kind of a weird thing. They would publish games themselves as well. Remember, these are all pirated games, right? Except the Sega stuff. Right? So it's kind of weird. There's eSWAT. There's our guy there. And they made a little joke here saying that, if there was an Oscar for video game intros, eSWAT would get it. So this is the intro for eSWAT. And of course, you can see here a little text that says Iron Fist first, I guess, Iron First Sound Dolphin. But this was the credits actually, so you'd actually show a little bit in jokes, like the things that the armor had. They're actually names for the developers, like whatever. It's pretty cute. So eSWAT I love eSWAT, like the franchise as a whole, but I love the Genesis version a lot because I also I had it as a kid, so. And I know about it from this magazine actually, kind of funny enough. This is the box art for the American version. The Japanese version of the box art is really, really cool. But it's not like that. I mean, this is cool too. I'm not saying it isn't. It looks really cool. It's gorgeous. So there's Ghouls and Ghosts, right? And this is the, what is this? This is the Master System version. Look at that. If you ever wondered if somebody ever cared about the Master System versions of Ghouls and Ghosts, well, there you go. Somebody did, in fact. More advertisements. This is so 90s. It's kind of absurdly 90s, isn't it? And here you see another little thing, Amiga, right? The Super Famicom, Mega Drive, Amiga, right? Yeah, because Amiga's actually, yeah. Oh shit! Look at this. So this is the little thing that Tectoy printed out. I didn't remember this. This is actually a thing that is describing Tectoy as being the official representative of Sega in Brazil. This is important because remember that most software that was distributed in general was pirated. Like, this is just the reality of things in South America and many parts of the world, like third country, right? A third world country. This is how we grew up, right? This is what it was. So, but this is kind of saying like, hey, basically like Tectoy is Sega, so we are like legit. And we're the only legit distributors of Sega in Brazil, literally, like they were. So basically, this is what they're actually saying. Like, hey, watch out! Like, if you see Sega stuff that's not Tectoy, it's not like real. It's not like official. Although maybe it is imported, because I do have imported stuff from Paraguay. Funny enough, and it's actually Japanese stuff, and it's legit. Like, it's actually legit. But that's an exception. Normally, you would get stuff that's just, you know, whatever. This is Nintendo already here. Terrible game. I think everybody knows the Back to the Future 2 or 3 are garbage games, but well, there you go. I mean, it's just one game, but it's still garbage. Afterburner 2, and this is for the Mega Drive. Yeah, this is actually a pretty decent port. They didn't like the graphics and the sound as much. I guess if you're comparing this to the arcade, it's kind of garbage. Yes, whatever. But are you seriously comparing this to the arcade? Like, anyway. Advertisement for the Master System. And this is the second version. I don't have this one. I have the first one with Safari Hunt and Hang On in the memory. But this one had Alex Kidd in Miracle World in the memory. I actually have Alex Kidd in Miracle World in cartridge form, funny enough. And this is something that shows up. I'll zoom in. Produzido na Zona Franca de Manaus, which is basically like produced in Brazil. But this is, I'm not sure if this was assembled in Brazil. I'm pretty sure, but it was made in Brazil at the very least, enough to have a little sticker going on there. Mine was made in Japan, or at the very least, it was an American console, as far as I know, because it's in English. But the Genesis I have is a Japanese one, but the Master System I think is American. So yeah, this is more stuff. This is Nintendo again, Olympic Games. It cuts off. Olympic, it just says. Yeah, I just called Olympic. So if you guys know a game called Olympic. So this is the thing about Brazilian magazines, right? There's a lot of information here which is just not true. It's like, it's just kind of garbage. So, you know, you gotta kind of remember that when you look at this, because a lot of this stuff there was no way to know either. Like, unless you, I mean, these people are actually probably copying American magazines or just, you know, whatever. They're now taking their own screenshots, because their screenshots are garbage. They're all warped and all, but they're like taking literally screenshots of like a CRT, right? So what do you want? It's still cute they do that, but it's, you know. There's Operation Wolf, which is that rail shooter thing on the arcade, and this is the Master System version, which is, as you would expect, kind of garbage. As was many of the games on Master System were not very good. So they're not very good, honestly, but I still love the system though. So this is the last battle on the Mega Drive. But this is again Hokuto no Ken, right? Jeet Kune Do, yeah. Maybe they actually do know that. Well, they do know that look at that. They actually named that he does Jeet Kune Do, which is that Bruce Lee martial art, right? But they don't know, so like question mark. Yeah, remember, like, this is like early 90s Brazil, so. Anyway, so yeah, it's Hokuto no Ken for Genesis. It's not very good. Dialogues are funny though, in an English version, but the game's not very good. There are better like Hokuto no Ken games. Powertron. Yeah. So this is, I guess, Brazilian branded joysticks. I don't know where the hell they came from, but they are Brazilian branded. Maybe also made in Brazil. I don't know. I know that they are garbage. Like these joysticks were trash, as far as I know. This is Chip and Dale, and so Chip and Dale actually is called Tico e Teco in Brazil. A bunch of renaming stuff going on, but because Chip and Dale means nothing in Brazilian, so they just renamed them for something that people could actually pronounce. Yeah, this is a pretty great game. Capcom, I think everybody knows. So here's another interesting thing. So Lançamento, right? So who's publishing this in Brazil? Because again, remember, there's no official Nintendo publishing arm in Brazil. So how is that possible. So supercharger. So it says there on the little hand, supercharger, and that's kind of one of those companies that made clone consoles. Again, they're everywhere, right? So you'd see stuff like this being published by them. Tectoy published Columns, of course, right? Great game. Everybody knows Columns. Bunch of other stuff here going on. Again, this is this Mac. I don't know what Konami. I think this was originally what Ultra Games, maybe. I don't remember, or maybe Konami published themselves. Is Double Dribble, of course. But yeah, this Mac. I don't know what company this Mac is, but there you go. Ah, here you go. This is the thing. All right, so here we have a really good example. This is Dynavision 2. We saw a commercial for this third one actually early on. This one is, so here you see on the left, right? Pretty interesting how the console looks, right? Remember, this is a Nintendo 8-bit. This is a NES, right? The cartridges on the bottom there they have this generic box, right, with a little art there. And on top of them, they have a label with the name of the game. So let's say Double Dragon 2 or Ghostbusters, whatever. And it has its own light gun and those awful-looking controllers that would make no sense for any kind of actual game you would play on NES. But there you go. And then on the other side, you have Gradiente. So Gradiente, they made the Phantom system, and the Phantom system. You actually see the little logo there. It looks like crap, but there you go, right? So it has this little, I don't know, laser. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's gonna show up later probably in other magazines, but so you get the idea. And they also publish their own games, quote unquote, right? Their own games, through their brand. Only Brazil, folks. I guess. Like right now, this wouldn't be even possible in Brazil either, but. This is the early 90s in Brazil, video games, and this is kind of the Wild West, literally. Like, there's no... If there was a law for this, I don't think anybody gave a shit, literally, because this was advertised in the public, magazines, like, just, could buy this at the store. Like, nobody would stop you. Anyway, so this is now releases, like international releases, stuff that hasn't gotten to Brazil yet, and I suppose wasn't released in Brazil yet. So this is, here's a bunch of stuff. Wampum, I don't know what the fuck this is. I don't think the game's called that, but yeah. Cat. And this is a shooter, right? Yeah, this is the shooter version, which has a very unfortunate name. Battletoads on the side there. The Lone Ranger. Crackdown. Genesis, right? And then a bunch of other stuff. So, and they had this strategy guide part. This is for Ghouls and Ghosts. Yeah, Ghouls and Ghosts. And yeah, pretty cool. It's a little strategy guide for how to beat Ghouls and Ghosts. With interesting little graphics they have there. But going further down, Top Secret is the part where they have, I suppose the cheat codes and stuff like that. And yeah, exactly. This is just like cheat codes, or maybe not even cheat codes. These are passwords, like Super Monaco GP. Like Super Monaco GP, by the way, that was a racing game for Genesis. It was not an arcade port actually. It was like its own game, but it was based on the arcade version of Super Monaco GP, like Monaco GP, right? There was an original one which was, it's not emulated because it was called. It has like. It doesn't have ROMs. It has this other thing. It's forgot the name right now, but it's not possible to emulate it properly or at all. Discrete circuitry. Discrete circuitry or something like that. It's a mess. And the other game was on one of the system games, system boards, and it has really good scaling and so on. And they tried to put that on the Genesis. And in Brazil, it was a huge thing. Nobody else cared, but in Brazil, remember, had Ayrton Senna and a bunch of other stuff with Formula One, and people really, really followed Formula One. So it was a big deal. I know at least 4 or 5 people back then that friends of mine had that game. So, right. And in fact, the second game was actually sponsored and in part designed by Ayrton Senna. So, yeah, there you go. Well, Strider, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, cool. Hold on. Look at this. Look at this fucking thing. So, how do you get infinite lives in Strider? This is kind of famous, right? But this is funny how this works. You actually put Altered Beast in the console. Get to the title screen. Then you basically pull the cartridge out with the console on, and then you put Strider in and you reset, and you'll have infinite lives. So I'm guessing that it doesn't flash the RAM, right? So there's some addresses there that got mixed up, and it kind of functions enough that you can play the game still that way. I don't know what kind of bugs you would actually encounter in this manner, but yeah, this is. It says also you can use Thunder Force 2 for the same thing, but instead of going to having infinite lives, you actually go to the end of the game right then and there. So, like, warning, don't, like, this actually says beneath that, like, warning, don't do that if, like, your games can get fucked and your system can get explode or whatever, but I think it's hilarious that they do this. Strategy, more strategy for, this is Double Dragon 3, right? Yeah, I hate this game. The American version, I don't like it. It's really, really annoying. There's a version which actually makes the difficulty less stupid and more like Japanese version, I guess. And that's pretty cool, because the game itself is not bad, right? But it's just kind of, just, you know, the rental thing with the Americans and so on, as you know. If you don't know, right, this was a tactic that Japanese companies used because in Japan you can't rent games. You couldn't. There was a lawsuit and the whole thing. So, but in the US and in Brazil too, you could rent games. So to make those so the people who rented games couldn't just beat them when they rented them, so they wouldn't buy them, they made the games like extraordinarily hard or unfair in this case, like completely garbage. So people would just, you know, have to buy it so they could get better at it to, you know, beat it, you know, stuff like that. But didn't really work that way. What did it? So yeah, cool graphics there with the movements. I bet they were like ripped from the manual. At least, yeah. I always liked the graphics for this, but when I played the game itself, I was like, where are these guys? I would just get killed in the first, you know, stage over and over and over. More cheats. Or, I guess, tips, right? These are all submitted by actual viewers, or I guess readers, right? And this is, yeah, advertisement for the second TMT film. And this is strategy guide for Executing Shinobi World. If you watch our channel, there's a let's play of this game, the entire game. And this is for me very kind of nostalgic, because this is, I guess, how I found out about the game. I guess, I don't know, honestly. Maybe I got the magazine after I beat the game. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember having this magazine, and I remember actually looking at this. Because I didn't have the game, I rented it. I actually had very, very few games, funny enough. I just rented everything else. So yeah, I guess Shinobi World is actually super short. So, and it's actually super easy. Black belt, So this is also more cheats. And this is the warps in Psycho Fox. And, like, funny name, Psycho Fox. And Black Belt is the rebranding of Hokuto no Ken for the Master System. Funny enough again, right? So, not a bad game, but it's kind of eh. And this is a cheat code for Executing Miracle World, which shouldn't be a cheat code. This is the way to get continues. Like, what the fuck? Like, you have to actually, you know, have $400 in the game, I guess. And then you have to do a little command press input thing when you die. Otherwise, you just die and you have to start the game again. And the game is actually pretty difficult and pretty long, all things considered. So, you didn't do this. This wasn't fun. More advertisements for stores, and yeah, all this time on the side there, a bunch of advertisements. There was a bunch of stores popping up around this stuff, right? Promotions, blah blah blah. PC, right? So this is Las Vegas Gamblers, whatever. Chess Master, pretty well-known game. And MSX. So MSX, right? So Brazil was also one of the only other countries besides, well, Japan, that got the MSX. So the MSX, what if you don't know, is a console computer, I guess personal computer, made by Microsoft in conjunction with Japanese companies, so as to kind of tackle the particular needs of the Japanese market. Because IBM, and there's a bunch of story about behind this, but basically like the Japanese market in computers is a very complicated thing in the 80s and 90s because of the way you need to render Japanese characters on screen. That's kind of a thing, right? So this is one of those things that happened, and because it's had a very capable graphics architecture, you can play good games on it. It actually has a bunch of games, a lot of games for this. The Metal Gear games, actually, the first and the second one were for MSX. MSX2 actually for the second one, I think. So, but yeah, so this is actually advertisement for that thing. After the war, yeah, bunch of games there, and then Game Boy section. I applaud them how they could actually take screenshots of the Game Boy, because they look really good. Have you ever tried getting screenshots of a Game Boy, like actually with a camera with film in it? That must have been really fun. What is this? Rabbit Game Center. Oh, this is like an arcade thing, isn't it? Yeah, probably. And this is a section where people post their best scores, I suppose, right? And how did you prove this? You had to actually take a screenshot of your thing and mail it to them. Because that's the only way. This is 90, right? Like 1990. What do you want, right? And there's this other advertisement. I was always fascinated. Somebody actually hand drew this. And they drew TIE fighters, but they didn't actually... they drew this little thing on the side there, but didn't have anything to put in it, so it just stays there, I don't know, empty. Kind of weird. Classified ads, actually, like for buying and selling and trading stuff. Mostly in São Paulo, but a bunch of other stuff elsewhere too, but mostly in São Paulo. And yeah, so there you go. This is basically this second issue of... Oh look, this is an interesting section of like different cities, basically with this ads basically for shops, like video game shops. They fix stuff or sell games or whatever. You could advertise there. There is Curitiba, Rio de Janeiro, Belo Horizonte. Yeah, Maringá, Londrina. More advertisements. And there you go. This is actually the supercharger. This is, again, look at how it looks. Like a good friend of mine had actually one of these. And there you see on top there, the way the games were sold, right? It is basically Japanese box art, or sometimes the actual cartridge itself, just the box art, like the cartridge art, right? The label on this black box with the supercharger like logo on it. And the console itself is a recolored mold of the Famicom, even with the controllers attached like that, like the Famicom was. Again, and this took basically the Japanese cartridge format. I don't know if this would have worked with normal cartridges, the NES ones. I have no idea. I guess somebody in Brazil will tell me because they probably tried. But yeah, so this has been the Some Games number 2. I'm gonna do more of these videos. I know they're long, maybe they're boring for everybody, I don't care. But honestly, they're fantastically interesting because there is very little information about this online, in English particularly. And also because, yeah, you know what? There was a lot of culture around this in Brazil. Not so much in the rest of South America, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I'm wrong, but most of the stuff that people in Spanish-speaking countries got was stuff from Spain. And when it wasn't, it was usually like a Nintendo Power kind of thing, usually called Club Nintendo. We're gonna look at the the Chilean version of that later, probably. But it's a very different thing because it's just covering Nintendo usually, and arcade maybe sometimes. But this one is a more like open-ended one. Of course, there is a little bit of favoritism for Sega stuff, but as you saw, a bunch of games announced. Double Dragon there, Yonoid and all these other games featured are Nintendo games. So I'm, pretty sure that, it's maybe interesting to somebody, right? At the very least, looking at something like this. So anyway, it's been this kind of weird look at, gaming magazines from the third world, I guess. I guess we'll call that the series. I don't know. Anyway, so hope you had a good time. If you liked the video, subscribe. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Everything helps. Comment if you want to have a look at something specific that maybe I have. And well, that's it for now. So take care and game on.